What was Hitler's thinking about U-boats?
There's a moment where, he sort of realizes the strategic potential of the U-boat, but by that stage it's really too late.
Beneath the world's oceans lie silent reminders of Nazi Germany's naval ambitions. U-boats that stalked the Atlantic, the Arctic, and even the Pacific. Some vanished without a trace. Others were captured or rediscovered decades later. Each wreck tells a story of technology, courage, and tragedy. How did these steel leviathans shape history beneath the waves? Number 20. U-534, the sub that refused to die. When divers located the broken hull of U-534 on the seabed of the Kattegat Strait in 1993, they didn't just find another sunken relic, they found a frozen moment from the war's final frantic hours. This Type 9 C-40 submarine had gone down on May 5, 1945, just 2 days before Germany's unconditional surrender. Its commander, Captain Herbert Nollau, had refused to believe the radioed orders to cease operations. Instead, he headed north, reportedly toward Norway, where Nazi holdouts were still active. British bombers intercepted the U-boat, fatally damaging it with depth charges. Miraculously, 49 of the 52 crewmen survived as the submarine sank to the bottom. Decades later, when salvage teams raised it, U-534 was found astonishingly well preserved. Artifacts remained where sailors had left them: watches, uniforms, coffee cups still half filled with silted residue. The discovery ignited wild rumors. Some claimed the sub carried Nazi gold or secret documents intended for escape routes to South America. While no treasure was found, the boat's real worth lay in its authenticity. It was the last intact U-boat of its kind. Today, U-534 rests at the Woodside Ferry Terminal in Birkenhead, England, sliced into sections for public display. Its rusted steel and preserved interiors capture not just the machinery of war, but the haunting defiance of men who wouldn't surrender until the ocean itself claimed them. Number 19. U-505, the submarine that changed the war. In June 1944, deep in the Atlantic, U.S. Navy destroyers cornered a German submarine, U-505, after a relentless pursuit. What followed became one of the most extraordinary captures in naval history. Rather than destroy their prey, American sailors boarded the crippled vessel as it took on water, risking explosions and enemy fire to seize her secrets. Inside, they uncovered a trove that would alter the course of the Battle of the Atlantic. Code books, Enigma machines, and tactical documents that allowed Allied cryptographers to read German naval messages in near real time. It was a breakthrough that saved countless Allied ships from ambush. The crew of U-505, thinking the sub would be scuttled, had already abandoned ship, leaving behind the very tools the Allies had hunted for years. The captured submarine was secretly towed over 2,000 miles to Bermuda, hidden from public knowledge to prevent Germany from realizing their codes were compromised. After the war, U-505 was preserved as a war prize and later moved to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago, where it still sits, massive, silent, and eerily intact. Visitors can walk her narrow steel corridors and imagine the claustrophobic dread of underwater warfare. U-505's capture was more than a victory. It was a turning point in the invisible war of intelligence, proving that sometimes knowledge could sink more ships than torpedoes ever would. Number 18. Focke-Achilles-Fa 330 Bachstelze. Among the strangest devices ever deployed by the Kriegsmarine, the Focke-Achilles-Fa 330 Bachstelze was not a submarine itself, but it was made for them. This bizarre rotor kite turned the ocean's deadliest hunters into makeshift aircraft carriers. When German U-boats hunted in the open seas of the Indian Ocean or the South Atlantic, their greatest limitation was vision. Submerged, they were blind. Surfaced, they could only see as far as the horizon. That's where the FA 330 came in. Weighing less than 180 pounds, the Boxdelta unfolded like a metal dragonfly. It was towed behind the submarine on a long cable, spinning its unpowered rotor with the U-boat's forward motion. Once airborne, a single observer could hover up to 400 feet above the waves, doubling the visual range and spotting enemy ships long before they saw the submarine. But it was a dangerous job. The U-boat had to remain surfaced, exposed to enemy aircraft and radar, while the kite stayed aloft. If the sub was forced to dive suddenly, the pilot often had seconds to detach and parachute into the ocean, hoping his crewmates would return. Only a few hundred FA 330 were built, and most were scrapped. But one surviving unit in a German museum stands as a haunting reminder of how far Nazi engineers pushed the boundaries of desperation and ingenuity beneath the waves. Number 17. U-352, the Ghost Beneath the Waves. Off the coast of North Carolina, resting 115 feet below the surface, lies one of the Atlantic's most visited underwater war graves, U-352. This German-type 5-2C submarine met its end on May 9, 1942, when it was destroyed by depth charges from the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Icarus. The encounter was brief but decisive. U-352, attempting to ambush Allied shipping, instead found itself hunted and outmaneuvered. When the explosions tore through the hull, seawater and smoke flooded the submarine in seconds. Some crew reached the surface and were taken prisoner, the first captured German submariners on U.S. soil during the war. The wreck was left where it sank, settling into the sand as marine life slowly reclaimed it. Discovered decades later by sport divers, U-352 has become a time capsule of history and tragedy. Coral now blooms over its gun mounts, and fish drift through torn bulkheads once filled with men and machinery. Despite its popularity, the site is treated with reverence. Divers often leave small flags or coins in remembrance. What makes U-352 truly remarkable isn't just its preservation, it's its proximity. Few reminders of World War II's Atlantic battles lie so close to American shores. The rusting submarine beneath the Carolina waves remains a silent testament to the moment the war in the deep reached the New World. Number 16. U-869, the mystery of U-Who. For decades, no one knew which submarine lay shattered 60 miles off the New Jersey coast. Discovered by divers in 1991, the wreck was nicknamed U-Who, a haunting mystery of the deep. Years later, forensic historians and technical divers revealed its identity. U-869, a Type 9 C-40 U-boat, once believed sunk near Gibraltar, thousands of miles away. The discovery rewrote history. Inside the wreck, divers found uniforms, ammunition, and torpedoes still in their racks. The hull was torn open, evidence of an internal explosion, possibly caused when one of its own torpedoes malfunctioned. Most chilling were the personal effects, watches, razors, and journals, confirming this was no ghost story, but the final resting place of 56 men. Nine's mission had been to hunt Allied convoys near New York Harbor, part of Germany's desperate attempt to bring the war to American waters in 1945. Instead, the ocean claimed the submarine silently. Families of the crew had no answers for decades, until divers and naval records finally matched serial numbers on recovered artifacts. Today, U-869 rests undisturbed on the ocean floor, its steel hull encrusted with coral, its secrets finally revealed. It stands as a sobering monument to a war that reached far closer to American shores than most realized. Number 15. U-166, the lost predator of the Gulf. Few U-boats ventured as far west as U-166. and fewer still met such a mysterious fate. In July 1942, this Type 9C submarine prowled the Gulf of Mexico, stalking Allied shipping near the Louisiana coast. It successfully torpedoed the passenger freighter Robert E. Lee, sending it to the bottom, but moments later, American depth charges struck. U-166 vanished instantly, taking all 52 crewmen with her. For over 60 years, her resting place remained unknown. Some believed she had escaped. Others thought she had been sunk elsewhere. Then, in 2001, during a seabed survey for an oil company, sonar operators discovered two wrecks lying just a few hundred meters apart. One was the Robert E. Lee, the other, unmistakably, U-166. The discovery confirmed the long-debated story. The U-boat had been destroyed within minutes of its attack, sinking alongside the ship it had struck. Remotely operated cameras revealed the bow section ripped open by a direct hit, yet the remainder of the vessel remained eerily intact. Declared a war grave to honor the entombed crew, U-166 rests undisturbed beneath the Gulf's sedimented waters.
Yet here it was, deep in the Gulf, hundreds of miles from its presumed final resting place. Historians, naval experts, and the media buzzed with excitement.
It serves as a steel time capsule from the last days of the Battle of the Atlantic, a silent reminder that the ocean forgets nothing, even when the world above moves on. Number 14. U-977, the submarine that wouldn't surrender. When the war in Europe ended in May 1945, most of Germany's U-boat fleet surrendered immediately. But U-977, commanded by Heinz Schäfer, vanished. Refusing to accept defeat, Schäfer and his crew embarked on an astonishing 66-day underwater voyage to Argentina. Operating on primitive snorkel systems and meager rations, U-977 traveled submerged across the Atlantic for more than 2 months, the second longest continuous underwater journey of the war. When they surfaced near the South American coast in August 1945, the war had ended 3 months earlier. Their surrender at Mar del Plata caused an international sensation. Rumors of Nazi escape routes and stolen treasures swirled, making U-977 legendary. In reality, the submarine carried only exhausted men and a commander unwilling to end the war in shame. Allied interrogations later debunked the myths, but the story endured, cementing U-977 as a symbol of defiance and endurance. The submarine itself was eventually handed over to the U.S. Navy, used for testing, and later sunk off Cape Cod, swallowed forever by the waters it once defied. U-977's journey remains a remarkable tale of loyalty, perseverance, and legend, one of the most extraordinary chapters in naval history. Number 13. U-864, the Mercury submarine. Few discoveries are as eerie or as dangerous as U-864, a Nazi submarine found off Norway in 2003. This Type 9 D2 U-boat wasn't carrying soldiers, but 65 tons of liquid mercury sealed in steel flasks and bound for Japan. The mission, Operation Caesar, aimed to deliver advanced weapons technology, jet engine parts, and industrial materials to Germany's Pacific ally. In February 1945, U-864 departed Bergen on its final voyage. British codebreakers intercepted German communications, alerting HMS Venturer, commanded by Captain James Launders. In an unprecedented feat, Launders tracked and attacked the submerged U-boat while remaining underwater himself, firing 4 torpedoes on a predictive course. The result? The first recorded submarine-on-submarine kill in history. When U-864 was discovered decades later, it lay split in 2 across the seabed, its mercury cargo slowly leaking into surrounding sediments. Norwegian authorities quickly declared the site both a war grave and an environmental hazard. Plans to raise or entomb it sparked international debate. Today, U-864 remains sealed under a massive layer of sand and rock to prevent contamination. The wreck is a chilling reminder that the remnants of war can poison the sea long after the guns fall silent, a toxic ghost from the depths of Hitler's collapsing empire. Number 12. U-534A, the Baltic's silent twin. In 2018, divers exploring the cold waters near Bornholm Island in the Baltic Sea stumbled upon a steel shadow resting 400 feet below the surface. The wreck's distinctive profile revealed it as a German Type 9 submarine, eerily similar to the already famous U-534. For years, it was dubbed U-534A, its exact identity still debated among naval historians. The discovery rekindled rumors of the Ghost Convoy, a final flotilla of Nazi U-boats attempting to flee toward Norway or South America in the war's last days. The wreck bore signs of haste: empty torpedo tubes, missing identification plaques, and hastily sealed compartments. It likely went down violently, possibly after striking a mine as retreating German forces navigated the increasingly deadly Baltic in the 1945. Remotely operated cameras revealed equipment identical to U-534, down to wiring and control dials, suggesting both submarines were part of the same last-ditch operation to evacuate personnel, technology, or cargo. Although the frigid waters preserved the hull, the human story remains a mystery. Who commanded her? Where was she headed? To this day, U-534A rests silently in the Baltic, a steel echo of Nazi Germany's final, desperate voyages into oblivion. Number 11. U-250, the sub that the Soviets wouldn't let go. The story of U-250 reads like a Cold War thriller before the Cold War even began. In July 1944, this German Type 52C submarine patrolled the icy waters of the Gulf of Finland, targeting Soviet shipping near Leningrad. On one patrol, U-250 successfully torpedoed and sank the Soviet minesweeper MB-11, but victory was short-lived. Within minutes, Soviet escort ships retaliated with depth charges, one of which detonated beneath the submarine's hull. The blast sank U-250 in seconds, killing all but 6 crew members, who escaped through the conning tower and were captured. What happened next astonished the world. Eager to study German submarine technology, the Soviets launched a daring recovery operation while the war raged. Under threat of German air raids, engineers raised the 220-foot vessel from 90 feet, towed it to Kronstadt, and examined it piece by piece. Inside, they found maps, cryptographic materials, and advanced engineering features previously unknown to the Red Navy. The intelligence gathered from U-250 directly influenced post-war Soviet submarine design. Today, sections of U-250's hull and salvaged components are displayed at the Kronstadt Naval Museum near St. Petersburg. Though stripped and studied, the submarine remains a symbol of vengeance and innovation, a war trophy that became a blueprint for the next generation of underwater warfare. Number 10. U-234, the submarine that carried the secrets of the Reich. When U-234 left Kiel, Germany, in March 1945, its destination was Japan, one of Nazi Germany's last allies. But this was no ordinary mission. Hidden within the submarine's cargo were blueprints for jet aircraft, radar components, and 560 kilograms of uranium oxide, sealed in gold-lined containers. Its delivery could have altered the Pacific War. The Type XB transport U-boat was one of the largest the Kriegsmarine built, designed for long-range supply missions. Aboard were sailors, high-ranking engineers, Luftwaffe officers, and 2 Japanese naval attachés. In April 1945, Germany collapsed, and news of Hitler's death reached Captain Johann Fehler. He faced an impossible choice: continue to Japan or surrender. Recognizing Japan's imminent defeat, U-234 surfaced in the North Atlantic and surrendered to the U.S. Navy on May 14, 1945. The Americans were stunned by its cargo. The uranium, intended for Japan's atomic program, was quietly taken into U.S. custody. Some historians suggest it was later used in the Manhattan Project. The submarine's capture remained secret for months, fueling post-war speculation. U-234's final voyage stands as a dramatic intersection of science and warfare, where the last efforts of a collapsing empire nearly influenced the dawn of nuclear power, leaving a chilling legacy beneath the Atlantic waves. Number 9. U-110, the capture that won the Battle of the Atlantic. In May 1941, a fierce skirmish erupted in the North Atlantic. The German submarine U-110, commanded by Fritz Julius Lemp, had attacked a convoy when depth charges from HMS Bulldog crippled it. As the submarine surfaced, chaos followed. The crew attempted to scuttle the vessel, but the British acted swiftly. A daring boarding party led by Lieutenant David Balmy stormed the semi-flooded U-boat, descending into its dark, claustrophobic interior. What they found would change the course of World War II, an intact Enigma machine and its code books. These materials were rushed to Bletchley Park, where Alan Turing and his team used them to break German naval codes.
British computing pioneer and legendary World War II codebreaker Alan Turing. This is very significant. Turing led a team that cracked the Nazis' Enigma code in World War II, which really turned the course of the war.
The intelligence gained from U-110's capture, codenamed Operation Primrose, allowed the Allies to anticipate U-boat attacks and reroute convoys, saving thousands of lives. The operation was kept secret for decades, and most of the boarding crew never received public recognition. U-110 herself soon sank beneath the waves, claimed by the sea. Yet her legacy endured in every intercepted message, every convoy that reached port safely, and every Allied victory that followed. The submarine's brief moment above water transformed the hidden war of encryption into one of the Allies' greatest triumphs of intelligence, courage, and timing. Number 8. U-96, the submarine behind Das Boot. Among the hundreds of U-boats that prowled the Atlantic, few became as legendary or as humanized as U-96. A Type Pod 2C submarine commissioned in 1940, it served under Heinrich Lehmann-Willenbrock and earned a reputation for daring and precision. Over its career, U-96 completed 11 patrols, sinking 27 Allied ships and damaging several more. But it wasn't the number of kills that immortalized it, it was the story. War correspondent Lothar Gunther Buchheim sailed aboard U-96 in 1941, capturing the claustrophobic tension, fear, and grim humor of the crew. His account became the acclaimed novel Das Boot and inspired Wolfgang Petersen's 1981 film of the same name. Through this, U-96 became the most famous submarine in cinematic history. Historically, the real U-96 survived most of the war, enduring countless convoy battles and attacks. Its luck ran out not at sea, but in port. On March 30, 1945, Allied bombers destroyed it in Wilhelmshaven harbor. The wreck was later found buried beneath rubble and silt, a relic of both war and legend. U-96's story bridges myth and history, revealing that behind the cold steel of the Kriegsmarine's deadliest weapons were ordinary men, trapped, terrified, and struggling to survive beneath a world at war. Number 7. U-295, the Arctic Survivor. The Arctic Ocean is one of the last places anyone would expect to find a near-intact Nazi submarine. Yet that's where U-295 was discovered in 2018, lying almost perfectly preserved at 300 meters off Norway's Lofoten coast. A Type 5T WOC/41 submarine, U-295 was commissioned in 1943 and operated mainly in Arctic waters, patrolling near the Kola Peninsula and intercepting Allied supply convoys bound for the Soviet Union. On April 16, 1945, while evading British aircraft, U-295 was attacked and heavily damaged by depth charges. The crew scuttled the boat to avoid capture and escaped in lifeboats, later rescued by nearby German forces. For decades, her resting place remained unknown until modern sonar mapping revealed the wreck almost upright on the seabed. Underwater drones filmed the site, astonishing historians. The conning tower still bore traces of paint, and the deck gun remained pointed skyward. The hull, though slightly buckled, was largely sealed, a rarity for wartime wrecks. U-295 provides invaluable insight into late-war submarine operations in the freezing northern seas. As one of the last U-boats to see action before Germany's surrender, its remarkable preservation makes it a time capsule of technology and endurance. Today, it rests in near total darkness, its silence broken only by Arctic currents swirling around a machine built for war. Number 6. The Peenemünde Type 9C, the lost prototype. In 2015, sonar scans in the Baltic Sea near Denmark's Langeland revealed a massive steel hull lying quietly on the seabed. Divers discovered a Type 9C U-boat, one of Germany's long-range ocean cruisers, but this one was different. Its markings and serial numbers didn't match any known vessel. Historians began calling it the Peenemünde 9C, after the top-secret weapons testing base where it was likely refitted in the war's final months. Evidence suggested the submarine had been modified for experimental technology, possibly carrying advanced guidance systems or components linked to the V-2 rocket program. Reinforced hatches, extra wiring conduits, and dismantled control arrays hinted at hasty wartime alterations. Some theorize it may have been part of Operation Caesar, the same mission that sent U-864 toward Japan with hazardous cargo. The wreck's preservation is remarkable. The bow lies buried in sand, yet the conning tower, periscopes, and anti-aircraft mounts remain intact. It likely sank in 1945, either from a mine or internal explosion while attempting to escape toward Norway. Today, the Peenemünde 9C remains officially unidentified, offering a rare glimpse into Nazi experimental naval engineering. It stands as a ghost ship from a secret chapter of submarine warfare, where science, desperation, and destruction converged in the final days of the Third Reich. Number 5. U-219, the Far East Wanderer. Of all the U-boats to survive the Atlantic War, few traveled farther or stranger than U-219. A Type XB supply and mine-laying submarine, she departed Bordeaux in August 1944 on one of the war's most ambitious missions, to reach Japan. Her holds carried spare parts, ammunition, and German radar and missile technology for Germany's Axis allies. Evading Allied patrols, U-219 slipped past the Cape of Good Hope and crossed the Indian Ocean undetected, a 23,000-mile journey taking months. By the time she reached Batavia, modern Jakarta, the European war had ended. Rather than surrender to the Allies, the submarine handed itself over to Japanese forces in May 1945, joining the Imperial Navy as I-505. After Japan's surrender, her odyssey ended in confusion. Allied troops seized her at anchor, still loaded with remnants of German cargo, and in 1946, she was scuttled off the coast of Indonesia. Decades later, divers rediscovered her wreck in the shallow Java Sea, half buried in coral. Her structure remains remarkably preserved, with mine-laying tubes and the pressure hull clearly visible. U-219's extraordinary voyage is a testament to the global reach of Nazi Germany's ambitions and the futility of a regime attempting to prolong a lost war by sending its last steel leviathans across the world. Number 4. U-701, the Carolina wreck. The story of U-701 is one of triumph and tragedy, linking the icy North Atlantic to the warm currents off America's east coast.
Well, the story of the YP-389 and the 701 is sort of a classic example of the way that the U-boat war was being fought off the East Coast.
A Type 5 2C submarine, commanded by Horst Degen, U-701, was dispatched in 1942 to hunt Allied shipping near the United States, aiming to cripple vital oil and supply lines. For a short time, she succeeded. In June 1942, U-701 carried out a daring mission, laying mines off Chesapeake Bay that sank several ships, including the tanker Robert C. Tuttle. Days later, she torpedoed another Allied vessel, earning praise from the Kriegsmarine High Command. But the ocean's revenge was swift. On July 7, 1942, a U.S. Army Air Force's A-29 bomber spotted the submarine near Cape Hatteras. A single depth charge struck the hull, tearing it open. Only 7 of the 46 men aboard survived, clinging to rafts for days before rescue. U-701 sank beneath the waves until 2004, when diver Joe Cushing discovered her upright on the seabed, astonishingly intact. Today, encrusted in coral and teeming with fish, U-701 serves as both memorial and classroom, a silent reminder that the Battle of the Atlantic once reached the shores of the United States, and of the men who fought and died beneath its waves. Number 3. U-581, the sub that escaped, almost. In February 1942, U-581, a Type 5 2C submarine commanded by Werner Pfeiffer, patrolled the Azores. After weeks searching for Allied convoys, the British destroyer HMS Westcott caught the sub on sonar and launched a precise depth charge attack. The blasts crippled the engines and flooded rear compartments, forcing Pfeiffer to surface under a hail of gunfire. Realizing escape was impossible, Pfeiffer ordered the crew to abandon ship and scuttle the submarine to prevent capture. Most men survived, swimming toward the Portuguese island of Faial, where neutral authorities interned them. Pfeiffer himself made a daring night swim to shore, exhausted but alive, a feat that became legendary. U-581 sank and vanished for over 7 decades. In 2016, marine archaeologists rediscovered the wreck at 900 meters depth. The hull was remarkably preserved, periscopes upright, conning tower nearly intact, and deck guns still pointed skyward as if on watch. The find was hailed as one of the most pristine U-boat wrecks ever located in the mid-Atlantic. Today, U-581 lies undisturbed, designated a war grave by Portugal. Her story of destruction, survival, and rediscovery perfectly captures the human drama behind the steel monsters that once roamed the deep, silent, yet unforgettable beneath the waves. Number 2. U-320, the lost late-war U-boat of the Norwegian coast. The U-320 was a Type 7 C-41 German U-boat, one of the last operational submarines deployed by Nazi Germany during the closing months of World War II. Commissioned in 1944, it was intended to serve in the increasingly desperate Atlantic theater, targeting Allied shipping along Norway's coast. However, U-320's operational life was short-lived. It was sunk in 1945 under murky circumstances, likely due to mines or Allied anti-submarine action. For decades, its final resting place remained a mystery, with only scattered wartime reports hinting at where it might have gone down. In 2018, a dedicated team of marine archaeologists located U-320 off the coast of Norway, resting in surprisingly good condition at a depth of around 200 meters. The wreck was remarkably intact, with the pressure hull, torpedo tubes, and even some deck equipment still recognizable. Divers and remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, documented the site, revealing the vessel's complex interior and the engineering precision of Nazi-era submarine design.
This kind of design was thought to be good for escorting the submarines, leaving the submarine base and heading for the patrol area. And this anti-aircraft weaponry on board was thought to be efficient to cover the submarine convoys.
This discovery provided historians with invaluable insights into late-war U-boat production, deployment strategies, and the harsh conditions faced by crews in the final months of the conflict. The U-320 also offered a somber reminder of the human cost of submarine warfare. Though the crew perished during the sinking, the site has been carefully studied without disturbing human remains, treating it as both a historical artifact and a war grave. Its discovery helped fill gaps in naval history and reinforced Norway's significance as a hotspot for submerged World War II wrecks. Number 1. U-745. The Baltic Sea tragedy preserved under ice-cold waters. The U-745 was a Type 52C German U-boat operating in the Baltic Sea during the final stages of World War II. Commissioned in 1943, it primarily patrolled the strategically vital waters off Finland, tasked with disrupting Soviet and Allied supply lines. U-745's operations were perilous. The Baltic was heavily mined, and Soviet anti-submarine tactics were increasingly effective. On a fateful patrol in 1944, U-745 sank after hitting a mine, taking its crew of over 40 men with it. The exact circumstances of its sinking remained uncertain for decades, leaving a lingering historical mystery. In 2012, Finnish divers and marine archaeologists finally located U-745 at a depth of approximately 90 meters in the Gulf of Finland. The wreck was stunningly well preserved, lying almost upright on the seabed. Even the conning tower and periscope remained visible, and evidence of the crew's personal effects gave a poignant human dimension to the discovery. The Baltic's cold, low-oxygen waters helped preserve the wooden fittings, instruments, and machinery, offering a rare window into mid-20th century submarine life. U-745's discovery became an important site for both historical research and commemoration. Finnish authorities and historians treated it as a protected war grave, emphasizing respectful study while documenting the technological sophistication of German U-boats. What other secrets do they hold beneath layers of sediment? Share your thoughts in the comments below.